Oh, we're there. Hello Twitch, and welcome back to our What is Going On Here. Ah! Bear with. I have no idea what I've just done in OBS. So, not the smooth intro that I was hoping for. Yeah, got you. Streamlabs resources. There we go. Hello Twitch. We're back. I'm going. Let oops indeed. I hope we've all had a fantastic week. Welcome back to our D&D world building stream. Thank you for bearing with the technical difficulties. I am Roosbliz, and this week we are on session 6. Yes, session 6, the 6th session of our cooperative world building experience, which I think now needs to transition. Its moniker needs to change to it's a campaign building stream now, right? We're not technically world building right now. We are. There are still elements. We're now building an actual campaign with session planning. How exciting is that? We are one step closer to playing D&D with our friends. So thank you for joining us as always. If you don't know what's going on, welcome first of all. We are a very small but growing community of like-minded D&D/RPG players, and we're here to work as a team to improve our gameplay experience, whether you're a player or a DM, by sort of going through some structured campaign building. Hello, Mr. Perks. Well, welcome indeed to this, my explanation of what is going on. So we're all working together to build our own D&D setting. We're planning our own D&D campaign, and in that we're discussing lots of the nitty-gritty of playing D&D. So the intention originally is for me to get an opportunity to plan D&D, right? But then we're going to work together, and we're all getting that opportunity to talk about D&D, right? And discuss things that we're not so comfortable with, or like just ways that we can improve our game together. And I think it's useful, even if you're a player, to sort of get a little bit of a look behind the curtain to see what goes on behind the DM screen, because that can help us as players to understand what sort of things are going on, right? Like there's information there for all of us. So we started out from the top. We week one we looked at how the world was created and our belief system, right? And we create some deities and what have you. We ended up settling on like a pantheon of demigods that can Voltron up into like the original creator. And then we started to look at societies, and we've got a map, and we've laid out some settlements in our world, and then we started to look at the structure of society, and we've got a bit of a central tension for our story, where we've got a human monarchy that is at the heart of a kingdom that was taken sort of by force some time ago, and has been until very recently presided over by a human monarchy. And we are now at the cusp of that monarchy being replaced with an empire. There's a senate that are taken over. The king's kind of okay with it because he's deluded and he thinks that everyone still loves him, even though the Senate is just doing him a favour, taking over some of the more menial tasks involved with ruling. So we've got this like situation where there's like a transition of power, and that's going to be the central tension for our story. And we are now we've fleshed out Sunnybrid, which is our starting town, and we're now starting to talk about how we're going to go about running a session 0 for our players to introduce everyone to a campaign. And last week we put together a checklist for said session 0. Thank you, Rupert. This document, which I am perusing now, is available at the link that Robbie B has just got us posted into the chat, so you can look at what's going on. It's got everything I've just described in it, but in more detail, right? So, and you can read that between streams. That's always available. So we've got this checklist from last week, and we're now going to start working through this checklist so that we've got everything we need to sit down and run session 0 for our players. And then my plan is to run a session 0 with a mock player group that we can then review and sort of, hopefully it's been a success, but we can look back at it and think of some constructive feedback, right? And see where we what things we could have done better, etc. And see if there's anything we do differently next time. So we're actually gonna get feedback from this session 0 that we've planned as a group. Hopefully it'll all be positive, but you never know. Is my chat box working? Right, so that's where we're up to. There is all of our previous streams are available on YouTube as well, which I'm just gonna fire into the chat right now. So if you want to go back and catch up, the options there is like a video on demand on YouTube to watch back the last 5 streams, so you can see how we've got to where we've got to. But if reading the document is everything you need to get up to date with where we are. So that's it really. We're here to have fun really. It's quite a nice relaxing way to spend my Sunday. We just sort of plan a D&D campaign, which hopefully I'll get to run one day, but maybe not. And then we're gonna get some feedback from an actual group. I think that's the plan. I've already set the wheels in motion for running that mock session, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully you are too, because it's taken me out of my comfort zone a little bit as well, because this isn't all my work, right? So normally I go into a D&D session that I've planned, like the entire world's like my baby, and I can answer any question that you've got about it because it's all from up here anyway. But this has been a cooperative experience, like a cooperative endeavour, so not everything was decided by me. So I wonder how I'm going to perform under pressure, right? Trying to remember what things are named when it wasn't necessarily me who named like each the objects. So like I'm looking forward to that. It's definitely gonna put me through my paces. Really excited for the D&D player test. I'm sorry that everyone can't be involved. So since we're on the topic, I have set the wheels in motion. I've contacted a group of players that are like varying experience levels, right? Because funnily enough, one of the problems that I've had is that most of the people I have experience playing D&D with all play D&D together, and I don't want to offer like a myopic view of the game by I could get like Robbie B and Pontus and Mike Brown and Ali Scarlett all into one group and run a session with them, but it would become like full of in-jokes, and it would just end up being like a clone of campaigns that we already play together, right? And I want it to be like varied and what have you, by like so that it's not. I don't want anyone who's never played before, for instance, to watch and just think, oh, this is what every game's like. It's not, because you're looking at a group of very close friends who have a set way of interacting with each other. So I've tried to get as varied a sample as I can get out of people that I have experience playing with, and I've actually got a pretty varied group. So I'm really excited about that. And I've got one player who's like, so I wanted to have someone who's new, but the issue with that is sort of getting someone who's never played D&D and saying, hey, do you want me to film you trying to play D&D for the first time, having no idea what you're doing, and then I'm going to let people watch it online, right? And also, what you're going to get out of the experience is you're not even actually going to get to play D&D, because it's like a session 0, and it probably won't turn into an actual campaign. And I haven't really asked anyone who's never played before, but it's not something I was super comfortable with asking, because it sounded a little bit weird, a little bit daft. But I've got someone who's got very, very limited experience playing D&D. They've played a couple of sessions of the essential kit, or whatever it's called now, the starter set, and then like 1 or 2 sessions of a homebrew campaign, but never really got that into it. And that was a long time ago. So for all intents and purposes, their knowledge of D&D is basically 0. But that'll also, one of the other factors is that I'm getting all these people to contribute their time, which I'm forever grateful for. And when it comes to like building a character, we're probably going to use D&D Beyond, but someone who's like vaguely recalls the time they made a character once is going to be able to like fly through the process a lot quicker. And I don't want to like hold everyone up because I'm having to explain like every ability to someone who's like genuinely new. But I think that the reaction they'll have to the experience will be very much that of someone who's new. They've never been involved in a session 0 before, so that'll 100% be new. We have a good mix of players who haven't played a session 0. So yeah, so again, be excited about that. I'm very pleased to hear that you're excited about it as well. Hi Pontus, you've arrived just in time, because you've sort of just missed the intro ramble where I say the things that I say every week. So pleased to have you. Welcome. I also it wasn't a hot start, if I must say so myself, and I'm feeling a lot more comfortable now. So you've probably missed all the chaff, and you've arrived for the wheat. We're at the wheat section of the show. I'm just explaining what's going on with the session 0 mock group. I've got all hail King Reich Flairford. All hail. Yes, I've been busy behind the scenes starting to put together a mock group for the session 0, which I'm very excited about. I have made an executive decision in that regard that we're probably not going to stream the session, right? So when I started putting it together, and I was discussing it with people and asking when they could be available and what have you, I realised that trying to condense session 0 into a stream wouldn't do it any justice for a start. And the whole point is to use it as a learning experience. And if we're rushing through it, we're not going to get the most out of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the session behind the scenes at some point that fits everyone's schedules. And then if it takes 4 hours, it takes 4 hours. It's not a problem. We're going to record it. And then I'm going to get busy learning some new skills, creating some fun snippets and highlight clips of what happened. And then the people who are involved in the group are going to be available via audio to come into the actual stream on the following Sunday. So they'd be here, hello, we'd all be talking now, and then I'd be able to show you a clip of this is what happened when I read out the introduction to Sunnybrid, and there'll be close-ups of people's visual probably not close-ups, that'd be mean, but yeah, we'll be able to see everyone's reactions, and then we can stop and in a very reporter way, we'll be able to discuss after the fact what they thought at the time. Now that they've had a little bit more time to digest, I can say, what were you thinking at the time when I was reading out this section of descriptive text? And they can say, I was thoroughly enjoying myself. It was nice that you were talking and I got to just sit back. And then I can say, what do you think about it now? Do you think it helped you get acquainted with the setting? And they can say, not at all. I didn't really understand what you were saying. And we can all laugh and haha, and we've learned something. So hopefully that works for everyone. I'm sure it will. You're all lovely people, so So I'm sure you'll enjoy whatever we do. But I'm working hard on it, you know, and I hope that comes through. So yeah, that's us like 20 minutes into stream and finally well 15 minutes and sort of caught up to what's been going on behind the scenes. I want to remind everyone, as always, that this is a I'm going into the softer speak now. I want to remind everyone this is a friendly, cooperative environment, and we're all here for the same reasons. Yeah, we're all here to learn and grow as people and players. And if there's anything you would like to discuss, we are here for you, right? So I want to see 4 horsemen. I want to see you making me look bad by not adding commands in chat, and I want to see if there's a specific topic surrounding RPG games, or even better, GMing as a topic. Ask your questions. It can be like advice or just something you only get off your chest, and we can talk about it. That's peer feedback is important, right? And that's kind of why we're here. So don't be shy. And also, there are very many opportunities for you to get involved with this document. I try to color code as we go, right? Things that are green have been named by someone in chat, and things that are blue have yet to be named. And there are no stipulations outside of you'll be able, if you read through, you'll realise that there's absolutely no policing of what gets put in there. Outside of things obviously not being unnecessarily offensive, you can name someone after you if you want, or name a town after where you were born, or whatever. That's fine. Just give us an idea, and we can add you to the document. Carve out your place in history of this D&D campaign. You know, so that's an option as well. So keep an eye out for that. If there's anything you want to add to the document, just shout out, and we'll go from there. So first off, how is everyone? I've been talking a lot. That's kind of what I have to do because this is a one person. But how has everyone's week been? I've had one of them. I've had a weird one. You know, it feels very Sunday to me, and I feel very relaxed today. I'm probably not going to push myself too hard. You know, I just want to sit in, especially with the content we've got coming up. I spent a lot of this week stressing about whether or not I should pre-prepare content for this stream, because we're moving into the realm of exposition, right? Which is certainly something I wouldn't say I was an expert at, but I think it's like important for everyone to have a go, right? You creative writing and the speaking of said creative writing is not. It's all about conviction, right? I think a lot of it's down to like confidence, and you don't have to be a master author. You can just as long as you put forward what you've created with enough conviction, people will buy it, kind of thing. And so I'd put a lot of pressure on myself this week about trying to get some flavourful exposition typed up beforehand, so that we could have something that I at least felt was like passable, right? Because I was worried that when we're writing it here as a group, that like if you're not, it's all about inspiration, right? If you're struggling for inspiration at the time, which I think I probably will be this week. I'm fairly chilled out right now. We don't want it to be really dry, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're doing here. Doing good here. I've been devouring Pulp Cthulhu. Wow. I was saying it's one of the strangers to D&D. What's this? AD&D. So you're part of the old guard. Yeah. You've got a thing or two to teach all of us. I've always wanted to give like the Cthulhu games a go, but I kind of the the reason we sort of settle for D&D on this stream is like purely accessibility, right? We're not because we're sort of building this campaign together. It's not about the campaign that we get out of old school. Yeah, I doff my hat to you, sir. Yeah, the purpose isn't to like the it's about the journey, not the destination, right? The campaign we make is like it can never be used. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to like gain, you know, and hopefully everything we learn is applicable to any RPG setting, right? If you're a Doctor Who RPG kind of person, or you're a like Star Trek, yeah, it's just for. I wouldn't say in my experience it's the best. It's the best system, but it's definitely done the best at being available, right? Like accessible. It's definitely the correct word. Yeah, so I was thinking about pre-preparing stuff, and then I kind of figured that defeats the purpose of what we're doing, right? I'd rather we work together to write something that's like mediocre in our own eyes, right? Than me write something beforehand and be like, you should just write something like this. This is fine. Just write this thing that I spent an undefined amount of time doing in my spare time, and I'm not going to disclose how long I spent writing it. Right? We're going to spend half an hour writing something, and if it's not great, then that's fine, because we're actually going to get an experience to read that out to a mock group. And I guarantee you, provided I do you all justice and sell it well enough, that our players will enjoy our amateur writing, right? Regardless of what we think of it, I'm sure everyone will enjoy it. And it's like if you're going to write something that's going to take a few minutes of your players' time, tops. Like, they're going to remember that you're the guy who read out a real descriptive thing about the starting location. They're not going to remember that. They're not going to remember that your prose was particularly weird or whatever. So that's the plan this week. We're gonna start off with my DM introduction, which is going to be more notes than like a speech, right? Because it's relevant to me, and when you introduce yourself as a DM, that would certainly be a different flavour based on your preferences and stuff. So. That means I've got to put my coffee down though. Right. Let's get into this checklist. So a GM introduction. Hi, I'm Roosplers. So what's important here is that we're just sort of selling ourselves to the players, right? We're just letting the players know what to expect from us as a DM, because the whole point of this experience as a whole, the session 0, is to like make sure that everyone's on the same level with like what they're expecting out of the campaign, and it's an opportunity for everyone to give their 2 cents about what they do and don't want, and like how they would prefer things to run, etc. And this section's like the only section that's not. I'm gonna try to phrase this as like accurately as possible, because I'm not saying you're not going to be malleable, but the things that define you as a person aren't up for debate, right? Like if you're a fun-loving kind of person, right, and your players don't want a fun-loving DM, then that's not something. We're not going to change who we are for the players. We're willing to change the genre of campaign we're running, and we're willing to change the difficulty of the campaign we're running, and we're willing to change the way we level up our characters and stuff. All of that is up for debate, but the things that define you as a DM, they're unique to you. So we're going to start off by introducing the values that you hold, right? As I say quite often, like I prefer low fantasy very much to high fantasy, and that'll often come across in the content that I write. Is that it'll tend to be low fantasy, and that's something that's like not. It's not something that I'm unwilling to move on, right? If I had players say to me they wanted to play in a really high fantasy setting, it's not something I'm unwilling to move on. It's something that like they'd sort of have to keep an eye on, right? If I was writing content, they'd need to be there, like they'd need to remind me that I'd promised to write high fantasy, because I would just tend to slip back into what's comfortable for me. So let's DM introduction. This is perhaps the most important, one of the most important parts of this, the whole experience, because we're kind of selling ourselves to our players, and the more confident we come across, the more confidence our players are going to have in us, and just in general, like that relationship's going to help the campaign in like manifold. Because I prefer to run low fantasy, but we'll roll with like it's we're here for the players, right? And that's why that's why I'd run a session 0, because I want to, it's important that the DM has fun as well. But if the 6 players want something that is outside of what I would normally default to, I'm more than happy to switch style up. You think Bad Bunny is the GOAT of celebrity wrestlers? What? You have to explain that to me, because it's come out of left field. Mr. Perks, if you were to familiarise yourself with this document, one of the things that's like become evergreen in this campaign is there's a lot of cheesy wrestling puns, and I'm on the edge of, I understand just enough of it to get by, but then occasionally something throws me. So, was a decent performance, TBH. See, now it's definitely something topical, right? Something topical's happened. I didn't see it, and now I don't know what's going on. So I'm just going to carry on. I'm just going to carry on writing this while I wait for like an explanation. WrestleMania last night. There we go. Yeah, missed it. Sorry. I'm inadvertently writing a wrestling themed D&D campaign, and I have the goal to not have watched WrestleMania last night. So I can only apologise. I have a somewhat embarrassing admission to make, based on last week. We were talking about what did you call him? We named character after Dusty Rhodes, didn't we? That was I can't remember what you, and I was just smiling and nodding along. I had no idea what you were talking about. He was in a tag match and beat your boy. What? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He can't have done, because the Miz is awesome, right? Muddy Trails, that's the one. Yeah, I've not added that because I didn't, because I was Muddy Trails is going to be is like an important character, right? Because Muddy Trails is the only person to have bested the king. So the king, our king, has his arrogance is overstated, right? And part of that is that he's never been bested in single combat. But there was some sort of agreement that he'd lost some sort of arena fight to Muddy Trails, which I'm assuming, based on context, like wasn't like a 1v1 situation. It wasn't like 1v1 on Rust. It was like a situation that meant that our king got to retain his never been bested in single combat tagline, but he had actually indeed lost the fight, and that was a humbling experience for him. But we haven't really written anything about Muddy Trails yet. It's going to be quite an interesting do it, like, because we're diverging now. We're going back to world building, but that's something I want to cover at some point, because it's quite interesting whether this person's like a different race that he'd lost to during the war. Well, I suppose he wasn't the king who took over the land, so I guess it has to have been post-war. But is it a member of a different race who was perhaps fighting for freedom? Is Muddy Trails a William Wallace character who's sticking it to He lost to Tawny. Yeah, he said Tawny, but Tawny's like a really ambiguous because if it was like a sword play thing at a tourney and it was 1v1, that's single combat, right? I want some more. I want some more like depth to how he lost because if he hasn't by his own admission meant that he's lost in single combat, then it's like yeah, I want to know how. Anyway, while this plot unfolds, I'm going to start making some notes because, as I said, this is all relevant to me, right? So I'm Reese Pliz, and I will be your DM. For this campaign. What we are doing for this campaign. I have put together the backbone of a fairly light-hearted, I would say, right? Fairly light-hearted adventure for you guys. Starting from first level, right? That's important. So our players might not want to start at first level, but let's let them know this what we'd originally planned at first level. So if they want to change that, we need to talk about it. And we're using D&D 5th, right? We're going to draw a pie chart, right? Remember we had this kind of like idea that we're going to show our players a pie chart, right? That shows a breakdown of like comedy to right. So I would say we're probably like 60% comedy, right? We're 60% slapstick comedy, right? Carry on humour, right? 20% intrigue, right? Because we have got a central tension to our story, and we would like it if our players engage with that at some point further down the line. That it's entirely optional, but it's there for them to explore. And then 20% like I want to say RP, but like not. That's not right because if your players being humorous and making fun of stuff isn't necessarily them not role playing, right? But and I also don't want to use the word serious because do you recommend rolling for attributes for newer players or starting with predefined numbers in the player's handbook? I'm trying to think of an answer that's not let them decide, right? Because like one of the things that you'll always come back to when you ask this kind of question is like a lot of the time it's going to boil down to what the players are going to find more fun. So it's like if you hopefully you know the play group well enough to make that decision for them. I'm gonna politician the question, right? And I'm gonna tell you what I think the pros and cons are, and then let you decide based on the scenario. So the point there's like points by and the points array, right, in the player's handbook or whatever they're called. So we've got one option where there's a predefined numbers and you get to choose which ability they line up with, right? So you get 114 and like a 12 and a yeah. And then the points array is intended to offer a little bit more flexibility, but to have the same like overall power level. And the idea behind those two options is that all of your players should be like, you should tell the party that they have 33 a third chance of winning, but you have a chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat you, so won't even try. There you go. The numbers don't lie, right? And if they get that, then they're in for a treat because they're going to get all the in-jokes in this campaign. And if they don't get it, they're going to miss everything, and that's fine. And spell disaster for the party. Yeah. So the main advantages of the points array and the point build system is that all of your players are going to have a similar power level, right? So, and that's good for a number of reasons because we don't want any of our players to we want all of our players to feel like they're equal, right? But we also at the same time we want them to feel special, right? So that curtails the opportunity for one player to just have overpowered stats compared to everyone else and be a Swiss Army knife for the team. If they're completely new, then a point-buy system with DM's guidance isn't a bad way to go. So a newbie isn't fighting against a set of bad rolls in addition to learning the game. Yeah, so that's the main advantage of those is you're all going to get a consistent character, and that you're consistent not only in your own abilities but consistent with the rest of the group. So it avoids situations where one person's got a terrible character, or one person's got a character that's just good at everything, and then when you've got one person who's got 3 14s and they can just do everything, and then your rogue doesn't feel special because the fighter's also able to do all the rogue stuff as well, kind of thing. That said, rolling dice is fun, right? And that's why we're playing D&D, is because we want to roll dice. And sometimes looking at that point, looking at that set of points and going oh, well, this is it. Here's what you've got. Everyone's got the same numbers and they can put them wherever they want. But you're kind of letting your players see the skeleton of how no one's play is different. They're just laid out differently. So it can be enticing for some people to roll. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I would personally. So it's up to you. So I'd take a look at what you think your player's going to want to do, and I would also take a look at your own. Be real with yourself, your own abilities as a DM, because it's your responsibility to balance everything out. And if you end up with a situation where one player's got a 16 and 2 14s because they rolled and you watched them roll and they did get it, right? You can't then go, oh, I don't want your player to be overpowered. So can you? I mean, you could, but you don't want to do that to them, right? It's your responsibility as a DM to make sure that everyone gets their chance in the spotlight, even though this one player is overpowered compared to them. So if you feel comfortable with your ability to put players on the spot and give players the opportunity to use their own abilities, even though they might not necessarily be the best person for that job. But on paper, right, the rogue is the best person for the rogue's jobs, right, regardless of the fact that he didn't roll anything higher than a 12. So you putting the players in a situation where they want the rogue to do that job. Hard 3d6 set of stats. Yeah, just if you roll a 5, you've got a 5, and if you roll 2 5s, great. If then you give them a chance, yeah. I'm trying to be political and say do what you want kind of thing. I would personally use the points buy. Out of the 3 options, I'd probably use the points buy, because what happens with the points buy that's quite funny is that if you let the players when you let the players buy the points with that system, they will half of your players will just end up with the array that you get anyway, the 14, 12, 11, right? Because you get one player who's I really want I really want a 15 for strength or whatever, and they realise that costs a lot of points, and then like they make they make an extra stat a dump stat because they really wanted that 15, and then the other players realise that like it's not worth paying for the extra points, and they just end up with the array anyway. But yeah, so I personally, if they knew, I would probably use the points array, but I don't think it's a bad idea to let them roll. There's things you can bake into rolling as well, like if like there's like the classic like you 4d6 like ditch one, right? So that like mitigates the chance of like rolling too low. And I've known people have like a minimum number as well. And when you start introducing like statistically, when you start adding an extra dice and they're dropping the lowest, and then you say anything under like a 7 is just going to get re-rolled anyway. Like the bell curve of like where the average rolls are going to be actually shifts up quite favourably for them, and that's obviously more fun because it's entertaining when someone rolls 3 6s, right, and they get an 18 at level 1, and like that can be a memorable experience. Think about the longevity of your campaign as well. Like, if you intend on running an open-ended campaign that's going to go on forever, then like, why not? But if you were running a campaign that ran from 1st to 5th level and it was supposed to be like quite a low-powered campaign, maybe because you're a newer DM and you don't want to run like higher power monsters and you just getting an idea for it, then you maybe wouldn't want a player to have the opportunity of having an 18 strength on day 1 because it'll make your other players feel like they're not as useful. So I hope that in some way answered your question. That's my opinion anyway. And it seems to be Mr. Perks agrees that. Like a lot of it's just explaining to. I would look out for. I'd look out for your players wanting to roll the stats, and if they're a newer player and you're getting the impression they want to roll stats, like try and find out why, right? Because if they want to roll stats because they're looking in the book and they're seeing that all the arrays are the same and they don't think that's why can't I use words today? They don't think that they can create a unique character from that. It's not customizable enough. English, right? If they feel like that's not a customizable enough option, right? Then and if they're a new player, then they're not aware that the person who's choosing to be a human is just getting a +1 to everything. And like once you start choosing your race and your class and stuff, the numbers are going to change anyway, and you're going to realise everyone's like way different once you get to the end of the character creation process. So, good question, well asked. I could talk about this all day. The more they're like, okay, keep going back to this, and I keep thinking like, yeah, well, there's also like, have you considered communicate with your players? I guess is as always is like the long and short of it. Just like if people don't think that it's like interesting enough, then like find out why, because it might just be that there's like a misconception that like everyone being the same power levels actually really good for them. First, yeah, so we're running a fairly light-hearted adventure, and we're 20% like and maybe it's not that. So maybe it's like these are just arbitrary numbers, right? But we're just trying to give our players an idea of what's going on, right? So it's like 70-30, like humor and intrigue, right? And then it's also I would expect like I'm running this campaign, and I tend to run a lot of like social interaction. So I would say I would probably try and bring it back to like 50-50, 50% combat, 50% social. That's a good one. Like, just arm our players with stuff at the start, because this is when people are going to turn around and say like, oh, like I just want to fight monsters, and then we can like, we can try and like adjust those numbers to fit, right? If you've got a party of 4 people that just want to fight monsters, right? But I as a DM enjoy like the social side of D&D, then we can maybe like trim the fat a bit and say like, can we drop it to like 70-30 or whatever? And you might find that your players just really love that stuff. Yeah. But that's me as a DM. Campaign setting is fairly low fantasy. Campaign setting is fairly low fantasy. And at lower levels, I've baked a lot of player agency into the environment, right? So like you can choose where to go, and then like and then if they want to scroll, please. Oh, I'm typing below there. Thank you very much. Yeah, so and just like make sure they're aware of this kind of stuff, because they'll do this. No, that's not helping. Anyway, and like what I mean by that is that like introduce them to the idea that there's a central tension, right? There's a storyline that there's a storyline for you to interact with as you get into a higher level, but at a lower level, it's very much like you can go to the tavern and like just try and earn money, or you can like try and do things that will get you integrated into the central tension earlier, right? So it's just I want you to tell me where you want to go, kind of thing. So player motivations, right? I enjoy working with character motivation, and including them in the storyline. So like let your players know if they want to, if they've written a backstory and they've baked their character into the world, that's the kind of thing they'll get like not rewarded, but like I will expand upon that and help to create storylines that are more interesting to you, because you've decided you are from like a town that's on the map, kind of thing. Not everyone has to be like an outsider. What else do I want to say? I normally run milestone leveling. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, if they want to change that, I'm gonna make sure they're aware that anything on this can be like discussed. I'm gonna run milestone leveling unless people state a preference otherwise. I'll do whatever you want, but not on milestone leveling. Oh, here's a I have a unique rule for inspiration that I'd like to try for this setting. Try for this campaign. I wanna run on whatever happens to be my next campaign. I want to run inspiration as like a cooperative thing, so that the players as a group can once per session can issue inspiration. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, I think, but Rob's going absolutely ham on the commands, having fun. Very good. Yeah, and this purely comes down to, it's something I always forget to do as a DM, is hand out inspiration. Like, you've got so much going on. I want to tell my players that once per session, they can distribute inspiration to one of the players themselves, and it's up to them. Like, they can just, if they want to just metagame and just use it because it's an important role, they're fighting the big bad and it's an important role and they really need this attack to hit, that's fine, because it creates drama around like a specific action that's happening. And like, if everyone in the group has agreed that it's really important and they know they need to hit, like, they're creating drama for themselves. Great, fantastic. And in this campaign specifically, I want to make them aware that jokes, if they want to give it to someone for making a funny joke, have at it, right? That's like, this is a very comedy inspired campaign, and that's the sort of thing that I'm less likely to give inspiration for, because I'm like busy behind the screen. Like, I'm looking out for players doing things like, typically as a DM, I'll use inspiration to reward players who come up with an interesting idea to combat something that a situation I've created. And if someone makes a funny joke, I'm less likely to react by thinking, oh, give that person inspiration, that was funny. I want the players to like agree a joke was particularly good and we're going to give our group inspiration for that. And that's not, I'm still going to be able to hand out inspiration as and when I want, but it's just one thing. Like, it's kind of, it's almost like offloading a part of my job. I want to try that for the next campaign I do, and if this was one, then I would try it there. A melee was a situation where several fighters engaged in fight individually. This is where Muddy Trails beat Right Flayford. They did end up as the last two men remaining, so he was beaten one-on-one, but not specifically in a one-on-one setting. So you're going like dirty, like you're going like it's a little bit like, it's a technicality, right? Technically he's correct, because there'd been a melee up to that point and he was maybe not prepared to engage in a one-on-one. I like it. What you're saying is it was a battle royale and they were the last two left, right? And he lost one-on-one at the end, but that didn't count because there were 100 players dropped into the map. I'm down with the kids. Yes, I want to try this new inspiration rule out. Let's run that by the players, see if they think it sounds cool. Yeah, turn the cat backwards. What do you think? What do you think, guys? It's a cool new idea for you to try out. What else was there? Schedule. Yeah, man. I'm just going to put schedule, because obviously this is not a real life. I was thinking about this the other day. This is going to be the most exciting thing about running this mock session 0, is that there's going to be a moment where I say, can everyone play every Saturday night, every Sunday night at 6 o'clock? And everyone's going to say yes, because it's just a mock group and they don't actually have to make the commitment. And it's going to be a surreal experience. We're going to play weekly. Riker called for the 10th anniversary of his kingship, of his coronation. The event was called the Royal Rumble. How many entrants were there into the Royal Rumble? I'm just gonna wait. I'm waiting. Just gonna wait. And I know you're there's an awkward delay, but that's fine. How many Royal Rumble contestants? Who's going to be first? I need to make a note of this, because like, I'm going to forget that I need to add a Royal Rumble command. 100%. Royal Rumble command. Royal Rumble. I know I need to do a muddy road, or whatever the hell it was called, right? But we haven't really decided Muddy Trails. 30, right? Yeah, I can't do muddy trails until we've decided, and I don't think we should decide. This is an important distinction that because we don't need to know how our central tension ends yet. We've barely started the campaign, and I think I've got it in my head that this Dusty Trails character Muddy Trails character could be actually very important for like later down the line. If our players decide they want to get at the king, this person might be the exact person you go to. Schedule, yeah, schedule. And here's where I said I'm gonna make a note. To be fair, this is the heart. This is the naff bit, the like nasty bit, discussing our expectations. Right. This is where you've got to be like, you've got to be delicate, but you've got to be like, you've also got to be firm at the same time and say like, you know, I'm not a headmaster or anything, but you know, if we're making a schedule and we're all agreeing to it, please don't be a dingus, right? Let us know in advance if you can't make it, right? Emergencies happen and stuff, and that's fine, but like, remember that there are people who are relying on you to. It's just a game and what have you, but people are diverting time in their lives to play the game. Not least of all you as the DM, right? And everyone who's involved deserves a certain level of like respect in terms of scheduling. We all know that. Everyone, I imagine everyone here is of the inclination that, you know, a commitment's a commitment and whatever. And it's a shame that you have to have this kind of conversation with adults, but you do. So that's it. I haven't got any other like specific house rules. That's kind of like a there's always that thing that happens when you start a new campaign with new people that you realise that everything you think is a rule is actually a house rule, because no one's ever actually read the like Player's Handbook or Dungeon Master's Guide front to back and remembers it all. There's always things that like, if Raw Rumble is taking crowning glory. Yeah, so there's the little things like advantage on flanking and stuff. Like I can never remember which way it is, but like I don't think flanking is an actual rule in 5th edition anymore. I think it's like a 3.5 thing, but I could be wrong, and that's kind of the point. Like I always play flanking. Like it just makes sense to me that if you can flank, like I'm a very like oh, that's a point. I tend to run a larger percentage of tabletop encounters, right? I'm a very like minis and scenery kind of guy, because of other like games I play. I like to I tend to run a large percentage of tabletop encounters. However, as we are running this campaign online in this hypothetical situation, I will be attempting, because you know it's a hard habit to break, to run more theatre of the mind. Theatre of the mind. There will be minis at some point. At some point, I can and will supply them. But if you want to source your own, go nuts. That's an interesting thing to mention, right? Because some players will absolutely love to get a mini sorted for their character and wanna like maybe even paint it themselves or like get one commissioned or whatever. And if I'm running in this scenario, like hypothetically, we're running it online, and I would have to make provisions for if I was running a tabletop encounter that I would get a camera set up and like I would have to make it work and not and not put any pressure on them to have to do anything different. I'd have to like get it set up so they can see what's going on. And if one of the players really wanted to get their own mini for the character, and they wanted to post it to me, so that when I'm running it via camera, I can get their actual mini involved. That's cool. Cool by me. Any of that kind of stuff. That's it. So that's my intro. What have I missed? More Royal Rumble talk. Royal Rumble, kind of Royal Romp. TNA things, or the Regal Romp. Road to WrestleMania. I'm in. I'm sold. Right, so WrestleMania is we just can't get away from the world building. I love it. WrestleMania is like an annual King's tourney, right? Kind of thing. Do I have any? I'm loving the questions, Pontus. Keep it up. And remember, if anyone else has got any questions, you can go wild. That's what we're here for. I'm actually like kind of procrastinating on the next point because we need to do some creative writing, and I'm not feeling super creative today. So answering questions is muchos appreciated. I've also another little peek behind the curtain. I know when our mock session 0 is going to take place, and it's like a fair few weeks away. So like, I don't want to overshoot. I don't want to have finished planning session 0 too long before we actually run the mock thing, because I don't want to move on to another topic for a few weeks and then come back and go, hey, remember when we did session 0? Here's a group of people playing it, which is, I think, a good thing, because we've been like. So I'm very proud of where we've come as a group, right? We've planned, the way we've gone about planning this campaign's like been phenomenal, right? It's happened so much faster than I thought it was going to, right? We've just been really good at getting ideas down, and I don't think while that's great, I don't think slowing down a bit's like a bad idea, because I'm personally very much enjoying the process, and like it's a very nice way to spend Sunday evening, just a bit of socializing and stuff. And like, as weird as this particular scenario for socializing is, like, it's still quite enjoyable, and hopefully you guys are having fun as well. Do I have any suggestions for buying character sheets or dice? I feel it would be nice to provide single die for new players if affordable. Chat will have to write it then. Yeah, well, we'll just make you guys do it. Well, that's the plan anyway. Like, we're going to do it together because, like, as I said earlier, I'm 90% confident that we're not going to think it's great, and then I'm 100% confident that we're going to take something that we don't think is like a masterpiece, and we're going to read it to our players in context, and they're going to love it. So that's something I have a lot of experience of as a DM. It's just like winging it, talking out of my butthole, right? Reading something that I wrote last minute, or like I tried to spend more time, like last minute, because I tried to spend more time on it and it felt awful, and then I didn't know how to like replace it, and then thinking, well, I have to read something, so I just read it anyway, and then the players, you guys might just be being polite, but seem to somewhat enjoy my terrible writing. So it's like, you know, I'd never worry about that kind of thing. You might have a mercenary group of players, in which case best of luck to you, but I only play with the best of the best, so yeah, no worries. We are gonna do that. It's happening today. We're gonna write either a brief physical description of Sunnybreeze, or we're gonna write a short story to introduce the campaign setting, which could even be like a poem or something. Just some sort of literature that's going to introduce our players to the concept of our world. I'm going to answer this question, Pontus, I promise. Do you have any suggestions for buying character sheets or dice? I feel it'd be nice to provide dice for new players if affordable. Right. you can roll dice online for free. Okay, so that's like the first thing to remember is you can roll dice online for free, and I'm pretty sure. We just opened a new window. I'm sure you can. I'm sure Google does it now. 1D8. Yeah. Cool. You see this? That's all lined up perfectly. Oh yeah, look at that. He's a pro. Yeah, you can like roll dice on Google now. So, and if you go to Wizards of the Coast's D&D website, you can download a character sheet for free and print it. Like obviously you need a printer, but you can download a character sheet for free and find someone to print it for you. So like you should never worry about having to like provide this stuff for your players. You should definitely be on hand to help them. If I have a printer, right, and I'd print a character sheet. Yeah, it looks good, very good. But I don't know what that beeping is, by the way. It happens every now and again. I think it's our house phone. So sorry about that because I can't see it, so I can't do anything about it. Yeah, I'd always help my players, and you have some responsibility as a DM if your players are looking for help with that kind of thing to help them out. Whether you've got a printer or not, just like you should be able to find somewhere locally you can get an A4 sheet printed for pence, right? With that said, rolling dice on Google nowhere near as fun as actually rolling dice. We are fortunate to have a local game store, Mighty Lance Games, and like they have some very cheap poly dice. Google, eBay as well, right? Mighty Lance Games, hello, yeah. I say we. I do work there. This isn't sponsored content though, so I shopped there before I worked there, and yeah, we've got not just like the expensive, the real nice creme de la creme ones. We've also got like really cheap sets. So, and we've got a website. You can also get them on like on eBay and stuff. Like you can get sets of poly dice dirt cheap. But here is one thing that I know for a fact: anyone who's got to a point where they're willing to DM a campaign must own multiple sets of. That's not a stipulation, but you will own multiple sets of dice. I probably own like 30 sets of poly dice, perhaps. Me and my partner together definitely have got that level of poly dice in the house, just kicking around. And I'd have no problem with lending a player a set that they can use for an entire campaign. Because rolling dice in person is so much more fun than using an app or whatever. So yeah, I would provide. Yeah, just lurking, waiting for the call outs. Yeah, so I would provide my players with that kind of stuff. I have the capacity to print character sheets, so I would print character sheets. I have the capacity to lend dice out, and I would have no problem with lending dice out. But that doesn't mean that you as a DM must have access to a printer and stuff. Talking, yeah, it's called lurking, isn't it? Lurking, just. You haven't always got access to the keyboard, have you? Yeah, so I don't really know if I've answered the question. Any suggestions for buying character sheets or dice? See, so I've never bought a character sheet, but I've thought about it because there was a point. It's probably still possible, depending on where you are in the world. They've released licensed character sheets in a pack. You could buy like 10 character sheets in a pack, and they're like the proper D&D ones in a nice like A4 folder thing. But all it is the ones you can get online printed for dirt cheap, printed on paper. They look a little bit nicer than if you print them off at home because everything's got the appropriate margins on and what have you. But go to your new local news agents and ask them if they can print for you, because a lot of them do. That might be a UK thing, but I I don't think printing a character sheet should be a problem where you live. If you personally are listening to this and you've had an issue getting a character sheet printed, please contact me and I will go out of my way to help you source character sheets in your area. Yeah, the library, exactly. Like, not everyone's as fortunate as we are, but I'm sure it's doable. Something I'll talk about later on when we're gathering all the resources for session 0 is online document printing. There's a website called Docs Direct, which is an unfortunate name because there were names that before, like doxing people online became a thing, and it is spelled DOX. And like, I don't know if they're the cheapest or anything. I personally use them because when they ship you an order, they put like a little refresher bar in. They put a sweetie in there, and that's just like, that's gold. That's a solid touch point, right? I've never considered using anyone else because their prices are like cheap anyway. And the first time I placed an order with them, I got a sweet. So like, to fill you all the way in, when I'm running campaigns, like I do a lot of drawing maps and stuff, and then I'll get them printed. And this website is the one I use because it's the first one I ever found, right? When I was like, I wonder if I can get this printed out on A2. And you're literally, to get things printed out like A2, A3, or A4, you're literally looking at like pence. And then it ends up being like roughly £2 once they've included postage to get like 4 copies of something printed out. And the first time I ordered from them, they sent me a refresher bar, and I've used them every time since. I would definitely get them printed out. Yeah, like it's that. I think there's like a notion that these kinds of things need, like, it. There's always going to be people who, if you can have the finer things, are going to want the finer things. And having the licensed character sheets that come in the little pack are great and everything, but the whole point of the game is that you don't need all this stuff to be able to play it. You even the like player's handbook and what have you. There's versions of that content available from Wizards for free, and it's not the fully fleshed out player's handbook, but there's everything you need online to play a game of D&D today, having never earned a copy of anything that you've paid for. So, and there's like D&D Beyond. You could just run your character sheet online. It's fun. Like, printing out's definitely like, I've used D&D Beyond and it's great and everything. And there's definitely something to be said as a DM for having access to your players' character sheets, like in the back end, because you can set up a campaign and all your players like link their account to it. They link their character to the campaign, so you can look at all of their stuff and you can mess with their inventory if you want to like steal stuff from them or whatever. And that's great, but there's something about writing in pencil on a character sheet that's like the one. Right, Flairford is king. Did I just say something was king? Yeah, so like his control slips from his grasp. How will our party react? Oh, your creative writing. You're moving on because I'm rambling about character sheets. But yeah, I think it's important for players to play with a character sheet. Think on D&D Beyond also lets you download as a PDF to print. It's like, it couldn't be easier. It couldn't be easier for you. Why aren't we playing D&D right now? They've made it as easy as possible to play. Let's stop the stream and start a campaign, right? I didn't actually know that. A haiku about our world. We want to haiku it. The DM introduction. Let's get this on a new. Right. DM introduction. What's next? Thanks for kicking me up the butt, Pontus. Appreciate that. Welcome pack. Introduce our players to the world. Right. So, introductions. Pontus wants to do a haiku. Right. Right. Sure. I wonder if this is the first time anyone's ever introduced players to a campaign with a haiku. Has anyone got any? Has anyone got any? Not that there could possibly be any improvements, but has anyone got anything to add? I guess. Right, Flayford is king. His control slips from his grasp. That line's a little clunky in it because we've got double his. How will our party react? Party react. Control slips from his control. His control. You can't edit perfection, can you? That's the problem I'm having. Don't like the double his. Yeah, like his control slips from his. His control. Ooh, that was such a like simple change, such a subtle deviation, right? As control slips from. But then, so now I'm doubting. So now I'm doubting because it's not. He's not like. It's not. Well, I suppose it is slipping. It's kind of slipping by his own design, isn't it? Right. Like it's slipping because he doesn't believe it can slip. Right. It's kind of like both because like it's like a juxtaposition of like he's allowing the control to move away to the Senate, but that's because he thinks that ultimately he will always have control, and because of that belief, it's actually going. Like as DJ Khalid would say, he's played himself. Right? We're there. So I would. So yeah, like this is delightful. By the way, I'm absolutely loving this. Right. I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain who we are as a DM, and then we're going to say on to world name, right? Because we haven't got a world name yet. Yeah, he doesn't fully like. Well, yeah, he's it's not even that he's incapable of understanding. He's just arrogant, right? Like he just believes that we've written like we've written in. I don't know if we haven't got a name for the capital city yet, but like the capital city up here is like a very like is like the best like garrison city in the whole empire or like the whole kingdom as it were, and it's a very symbolic city that like it's massive stone walls and like ringed like I'm picturing Minas Tirith as like a trope, but like it's like huge high stone walls and like everything's like concentric circles as you get deeper and deeper into the city. Like you get more and more walled off from what's actually going on in the outside world. And we've got this idea that the citizens who live in this capital city are probably the most like faithful. So as the king sits at his banquet table, entertaining guests that love him, he believes that sample is representative of the outside world, and certainly down here, where in Sunnybrid, where our players are going to start their adventure, these people have no real love for the king at all. That's not strictly speaking true, because we want parts of the population to be loyalists, right? We've written certain NPCs to still be loyal, because that's a really great way of introducing our players to the tension. And you would have conflicting opinions, right? Even down here in Sunnybrid, where there couldn't be further from the reaches of the capital, the decisions that get made there are not made with Sunnybrid's best intentions at heart, right? But the people here would still, for whatever reason, have split themselves into nobilists, loyalists, and separatists. I think our innkeeper is a very very patriotic, pro noble, right, character. He's a make the kingdom great again kind of character, right? And you would find that in real life. So, but the average, we're very much of the opinion that in this town, as a microcosm of the world, generally the mood regarding the handover is quite high. So one thing I didn't mention is that as the players arrive, as the players start their campaign, we're going to be right at the moment that Sunnybrid is being, the marshalship of the town is being taken over. Oh yeah, that's yeah. So it's all leading up to our players get to mess around in the sandbox and fight goblins and level up. But there's a real potential for if this becomes a long running campaign, when they become higher level, they can get involved in that political intrigue, and they can decide to help dethrone the king, or they might decide that they want to see him restored to his former glory, kind of thing. And yeah, they can end up being part of the final nail in the coffin for the kingdom. So yeah, that's the future of the campaign, right? And we want to sow seeds everywhere. That I can't remember what I was saying now. Oh yeah, so as the players start their campaign, Sunnybrid is literally at the point where there's a garrison on the hill by the town called Spear Point Garrison, and that is at this very moment the marshalship's being taken over by forces that forces that work for the Senate rather than the king. And there's going to be this tension in town where the guards aren't sure if they're losing their jobs because this new captain's riding in to take over, and the guy who used to be the captain doesn't know if he's going to have a job tomorrow, and what's going to happen. And the general mood for the populace is most people are probably hopeful that these people live in quite severe poverty and stuff. So we've decided that even though they're fairly apolitical people, that the majority of them would be hopeful that things are going to get better, because the situation's so bleak at the moment that change is probably for the better, right? Even though they don't really understand the politics behind it, they think it's got to be a change for the better. But then you've obviously got that core group of loyalists who want to. Very much go on, hit us with it, Pontus. So we're. I can't. Do you know what? I'm so happy we're doing this. We're doing this mock session now, because I really want to see people's faces as I hit them with poetry to lead up to the campaign. So after this, we're also, and this is probably going to be the main focus of next week, is I had this idea that I really want to do a propaganda poster, and we're going to sort of have an arts and crafts. We're going to have an art attack Neil Buchanan week. Spear points in the west, but in the east, but go on. Yeah, so while Pontus is regaling us. We're going to work on like a propaganda poster, and I want it to be like a poster that's been spread all like it's just been plastered to every available surface in Sunnybrid. That's like this is what you can expect as a citizen of the Empire, kind of like propaganda poster. And we're gonna have loads of fun printing that, and that's something that in IRL, if it wasn't a campaign, if it wasn't a session I was running over the internet, I would get physical copies of this from my buddies at Docs Direct. Right, I'd get posters printed out for each of our players, and I'd just hand it to them and go like, you can keep this, because it literally cost me pence per poster to do. Unfortunately, they're gonna have to deal with it being sent as an email, but that's the plan for next week. So like we're starting to work on this pack of stuff that I can just hand out, because as a DM, session 0, absolutely love it. Right, it's really important, I think, to like a fruitful campaign. But if you've got to be real careful not to be too dry for the players, because it's a lot of like information, and we don't want to just sit and read this like 12-page document to our players. We want to give them like things so they can make their own mind up. And also, I like the physical handouts great because it means that they don't have to take notes about that specific. We could describe a poster to them and say there's these posters everywhere that are like, and then they sit there and they feel like they have to write notes. But if we can just give them a poster, then it's like they can look at it, they can ascertain what they can from it, and then they can put it with a character sheet, and it might become relevant later on. They can look at it again and come up with new ideas about what's going on. I'm impoverished. Sorry, I'm gonna needs a line that begins with D. Spearpoint Garrison stands to attention in the east. Under the imposing fort sits a town impoverished. Now change is afoot, not a moment too soon. Impoverished citizens start to dream, but a royalist core remains. Remember the past, but look to the future. In the Senate we must believe. Determining our future. Now we've got future as a. Don't underestimate your part. Under the imposing fort. Ooh, I like the use of unto, Robert. No change is afoot. I'm taking my name off of this. I'm gonna take my name off of this. This stream is now Pontus Plus. Not a moment too soon. I love this line. Not a moment too soon. And I hope you can see it. Let me just reposition so I can see that. I need to sort my second monitor out. Not a moment too soon. We've got impoverished twice there. Well, this one's important, isn't it? Because it's the I. Impoverished citizens start to dream, but a loyalist core remains. Remember the past. Remember the bast. Remember the bass. What's the future? In the Senate, we must believe. Decisions are left unto you. I love it. Handouts are the one. Yeah, like so it's something that I want to touch on in general is that I have some graphical capabilities, right? Let's not overstate them, right? That and I own an iPad that's specifically for drawing, and I do graphic design as like as a part of what I do for a living, right? So I have the ability to make a really cool poster and get it printed out and hand it to my players. And because that's the thing that I can do, I will do it. But the last thing I want to do on this stream is have anyone look at it and go, "Oh, well, I'm no good at drawing, so like I can't do this," because it's like I was saying with this like creative writing bit. Like what we're working on now is all exposition for the DM to read out, right? And you don't have to be a great writer, and you don't have to be a great actor to read it and what have you. It's exactly the same thing. As uncomfortable as I am with the exposition and the reading and the acting out my part is as uncomfortable as you can be with drawing, right? It doesn't matter necessarily your ability. If you were to take an A4 line sheet of paper and draw a stickman on it and write some propaganda over it and then go take it to the library and photocopy it 4 times and give those to your players, that's absolutely fine, and your players are going to appreciate the handout. And so I just want to preface what's going on with that note, because it's something I worry about myself, because I don't want people to come and look and see me drawing on an iPad and go, I don't own an iPad. How can I possibly do any of this? Because I don't think that the medium is as important as we're back to the journey, right? I don't think the medium is as important as the message that you're trying to send. And this is a game about imagination, right? And when we say handouts are great, it's because it saves our players some time, right? For the reasons I said earlier, giving them a handout means they don't have to make those notes. And it helps them visualize what you're saying. Even if it's a stickman on a piece of paper with some text around it, and you say this is a propaganda poster, and this is the message that they're trying to send to the town, then our players can look at that and use their imagination to imagine that it might not actually be a stickman in game, but they're going to appreciate that you've drawn it for them instead of reading it out and making them write more notes, right? So just stick with it and just do everything to the best of your abilities, because a lot of the time your players are just going to appreciate what you've done for them anyway. So I think there's a massive preconception that D&D players are really demanding of their DMs. And I think that's got a lot to do with we're getting political now, but it's something I want to mention. I think it's got a lot to do with the social side of the social media side of what you'd find if you went onto the D&D subreddit. I think there's a lot of people online who interact with RPG content who maybe don't actually get the opportunity to play RPGs themselves. So then they form these opinions about what a good DM should be without the actual experience to back it up. And that's not intended to be a criticism of those people, but it's important to not worry about it too much. There's a lot of people who've never played D&D but have watched Critical Role, right? And they probably think that that's what every D&D table should be like. And if you're not providing that kind of content, then that's not real D&D or whatever. It's it's so not true, because everyone with Mr. Perks, right, playing AD&D back in the day, did not have a studio set up, right? Everything in the early days will have been as janky as humanly possible. If you haven't used an M&M as a D&D mini in a battle, then you haven't lived, right? Because it's all about imagination and all the things we apply to it, because it's 2021 and we've got access to technology and whatever things we do to improve the game, so to speak, aren't required, right? It's a game about having fun with your buds. So chill on that. That's just a little bit of my own paranoia there. I don't want to send the wrong message myself. And now I'm going to catch up with what you've all been waffling on about. Well, I've been waffling. Sits the town desolate. Yeah. Sits the town destitute. Yeah. Oh, did Ali and Pontus like purse at exactly the same time? That's rad. Go team. Were. That was weird, lads. Yeah. Very weird. Can one of the poems be accredited to Leviticus? Yeah. if that's what you want. I was going to credit you as the author, but if you want to adopt that pseudonym, that's also fine. Just on a side note, would you ever offer XP to players, especially new, for note taking? Erafina! What a question. That's not good. I've just noticed something really bad. This has come off the side of my new desk and needs to be reapplied. I was also thinking about the question, but I was staring at that, thinking like that's really bad. I would, yes, absolutely, offer players some sort of like experience or like or inspiration. Obviously, experience is dependent on how you're leveling up. Like if we're milestone leveling in this, then experience isn't really an option because it's just gonna make your own life like way more confusing. But I would absolutely like offer players benefits for playing well. But it's important that you don't like. Not everyone's going to play the same way, right? And if players aren't taking notes but they're being attentive and are still playing the game, and when they're asked what's going on, they know what's going on. Like they shouldn't be punished because they haven't got a journal, right? Mr. Ferris, absolutely, it was janky back then. It was all about being inclusive but engaging everyone, ensuring that everyone felt that they had part to play and a moment to shine. Mad art or writing skills were nice, but not a prerequisite. Yeah, like that's what. So that's the side of D&D that like I always want to like aspire to, like to be considered a part of, right? Like it's supposed to be like a really inclusive game, and like it's been. You'll find that like a lot of the time when I'm answering questions, like that's what I'm always going for. There's a million ways to play D&D, but the absolute like for me the absolute gold standard is the one where everyone feels like it's for them, and like yeah, all you play like everyone should feel included. Everyone should feel like they have a right to play, but like everyone should feel like their character's important. All that kind of stuff. It's just like wholesome. It should be a wholesome experience, right? The more wholesome it is, the better. So note taking XP. I would 100% point out that one of our players is taking notes and the other players are finding that useful. So here's inspiration. But I would avoid making it like a good and bad scenario, right? You want to do it in a way that you're saying, hey, I've noticed that this person's taking a lot of notes and good on them, but that's not the correct way to be doing it. Could you offer players permanent small perks instead of XP when you're leveling this way? Like the ability to reroll at any time once per session or something like that. So funnily enough, so when I say inspiration, that's what I mean. Inspiration's like a funny rule in D&D where like if you read the like I guess it's Player's Handbook. I can never remember whether it's Dungeon Master's Guide's like basically useless in it. It's Player's Handbook. Inspiration is supposed to be like you check a box on your character sheet and it gives you advantage on a roll at one time when you want to use it. And like depends on some DMs like use it as like a it's for use now type thing, and that just depends on your preference. Like some DMs will say like just give you advantage on this roll because you're saying something useful now. Whereas like I think the intention of it is that it's a resource that you can hold on to, and players can hand it between themselves as well. I believe if you were to follow the actual fifth rules for it. But yeah, that's like it's a nice little like it's fairly inconsequential as a DM to just let someone have an advantage that they get to use whenever they want. But for a player, it's really important. Like when you've got that in the bank and you know that when you've got an important attack to roll, you can just make it like if I have advantage. I actually think, and again, this is that whole thing about how most of the rules that you think are actually rules end up being house rules for 5e, which is great because that's the intention of the game, is that you just play it however it feels natural. I think inspiration's not actually advantage. I think you can re-roll after you've failed as well. It's not like you don't have to declare before, so it's not like actually advantage is better, because I tended to reward with in-game perks like an unusually intelligent stray dog that adopts a player as its best friend or something like that. Keep it in-game and noteworthy. Yeah, that's rewards like that like are more tangible are great because your players like you remember you've got a dog, right, and you remember where the dog came from, and it's because there was that time you were being rewarded for like something cool that you did. Yeah, like so. I'm trying to close off my point about like not attack it. You don't want your players who don't take notes to feel attacked, right? Like you want to like be careful about how you do it. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to wait for, if you've got one player who's taking extensive notes, try and take a mental note of that. Like you'll just know anyway as a DM, like that's the player who takes loads of notes and I'll love him for it. But you can't show favoritism. Wait for an opportunity where the other players are benefiting from it. So wait for that moment where they're all saying, where do we go now, what's going on, and that one player gets their notebook out and says, oh well, we spoke to this person and said this and this and this. Let the other players point out that they've been making notes and that's useful, and then you sort of jump in and go, here's your inspiration or your intelligent dog or whatever your reward is, because then it's like it's not you singling the player out. Like the players as a group have reached a consensus that, oh wow, Erafina's taken loads of notes and that's been really useful. And then you say, yeah, she has actually. I've noticed that as well. Here's reward. And then it's not like you let it be like, let it happen kind of organically like that. And then you don't, yeah. Taking notes in D&D as a player is something that like it makes the game easier. It makes the game probably in many ways like flow better, because it's difficult sometimes to remember all the things that you've encountered. But it's like it's not correct to say that that's the correct way to play. So you just always want to avoid like, you know, your players will encounter situations where they don't know what's going on, and it's because they haven't taken notes. And let them decide for themselves that life would be easier if they were taking notes. It's one of those things that you'll always put up against as a DM. You watch your players not taking notes, and you think like, you guys should be taking notes. But like, you know, that's for them to like. You're not a parent. Right? It's for them to realise you shouldn't feel bad about. We're getting into like the real DME nitty gritty now, but you shouldn't feel bad about letting your players not have the information they should have had, and like deal with that situation, a situation that is of their own design themselves. But another part of that is like not making them feel like you're punishing them for, like a lot of situations like that can feel very much like you're being punished for not doing the right thing. And it's like, I've been on the other side of that where you feel like it feels like you're punishing them, and you're just trying to do what you think is right in a situation where like the players don't know what they're doing, and you as a person probably want to just tell them where to go. But that's where like we can talk about that like another day, right? There are other ways to guide your players down a path without just telling them, guys, you should have made notes about this. and if you'd remembered this, then you'd go this way. There's ways to like nudge them, and you should do that more often because taking notes is kind of boring, but certain players like to do it, and yeah, that's that really. That's a very good question and a difficult one to answer. So thank you. Like, yeah, short answer, absolutely yes. Always seek to reward your players, and that's something that I don't do very often. Something I need to work on, and it's like, and that just comes down to when you're behind the screen and you've got a million things to do, and you're sort of not necessarily like assessing all the things your players are doing at all times and deciding whether or not they should get a physical reward for like. But it's something that I've come to the conclusion that for myself that you shouldn't feel bad about like addenduming stuff like that. It feels kind of janky in like a game sense, but there's no reason why you shouldn't start a session by saying, I was thinking about this last week, and such and such was like doing a really good job of keeping the team right by making notes, and I want to like award you inspiration at the start of this session because I remembered in the shower, right, that you were doing real good, right? Because it feels like kind of metagamey and like because it's out of game kind of thing, but like you should if you feel like you've created a situation where someone should have been rewarded and wasn't, you shouldn't feel bad about like going back and saying, I totally missed something at the time, I was really busy. Sorry, I was thinking about like what the NPC is going to do next. In-game rewards are quite elegant as you reward the smart play, and you're not punishing if you don't hand a reward out. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like in-game rewards are definitely like the way to go if it's consistent good behavior, right? If someone's consistently doing something that like blows you away, like it's reward them with something tangible. And then it's a little bit more subtle as well. I guess is the point. Like you're not literally like handing someone an A star and a gold star and saying like standing them in front of the class and saying like, look what this person did. It's like a little bit more subtle, right? I once threw out Star Mix. You know the little mini packs of Star Mix sweets that you get for goodie bags for kids' birthday pies and stuff. And that was quite fun because you literally got to grab the packet by the corner and razz it at your players. So it was like a good way to get frustration out as well. And I know, and I know how that sounds, and it wasn't like that. I was not intending to hurt anyone. But yeah, it was quite fun just razzing them at people, saying like, yeah, good job, buddy. But so that came up in our session 0 when I was being interviewed by Mike Pliz. He sort of brought that up because he said he really enjoyed it, and it went away. But I felt like it was sort of taken over. Like it was getting very like a lot of the session was about when sweets were being thrown out. So I kind of didn't do it again. But I might bring it back one time because it was pretty funny. It was an enjoyable experience. Cool. So thanks to Pontus, we've got some delightful. This is not where I thought we were going with this. I didn't think it would be poems, but that's where we've ended up. So I'm going to probably addendum this delightful literature with like a brief overview of what's going on. Just give players like an idea of the things they would know as a citizen, right? And maybe get an idea of whether the players are likely to want to be from our is it the Tattered Vale is the region, right? The Tattered Vale. If our players want to be from there, I'd give them a little bit more information and just sort of explain the things that your everyday peasant would know about the situation. Everyone knows that there's going to be a changeover of power. Everyone knows that it's almost like complete. Everyone knows that the king still has his crown and is still the king, but Tattered Veil, not been added yet. Damn terrible. Every time someone puts one of these commands in and it's not there, I feel it's like a dagger in the chest. Like I haven't done my homework, and I can only apologise. But it also reminds me, it also goes down as a note that I need to add that one. So I greatly appreciate that. I've just derailed myself. Pontus hasn't derailed me. Pontus has been on fine form this week. Not that the derailing isn't right, but I think Pontus has been the host this week. I always say that this is a cooperative experience and that you guys are more important than I am. I think Pontus gets the. If there was a gold star, if someone was going to get an intelligent dog this week, it'd be Pontus. So I would include some additional information and then sort of like have like a Q&A, right? Say like, is there anything you want to ask me about what's going on? Because we don't think the same way as all of our players, and they might have a question that we can probably answer on the spot, but haven't thought to include here. And remember, we want them to know all this, because what would be fantastic is if they thought about this stuff when they were making their characters, right? If one of our players decided they wanted to be a guard, right, who handed in his notice when he found out the Senate were taken over because he didn't want to work for the new guy, right? What a fantastic way to start! What a fantastic way to include a player in the story, right? It'd be very easy then to create hooks to hook that player into any storyline. So yeah, that's the beauty of what we're doing here. So what's next? So we're not short storying anymore. Oh no. We did write a little jaunt, but it's a haiku instead. A physical description of Sunnybrid. We're not going to start at that now because we've got 10 minutes left. So next up, we've done this. Well done, team. Everyone give yourself a pat on the back. Congrats. We probably shouldn't use green though, because we use green for something already. Let's use blue. No, we use we use blue as well. Orange, a ready orange, a blood orange, like Brid but more fishy. I have thought a lot about Sunnybrid as a setting, and so we've already established that it's a fairly impoverished town, right? And it kind of exists in and of itself, right? Its ability to function comes from the harbour, right? If the people didn't have access to fish, then this town wouldn't be able to thrive anymore. I'm getting somewhere, believe me. So I kind of have this idea that basically everyone in the town would either know someone who is part of the fishing trade or be a fisherman themselves. So it's gonna stink. But we need to. So this is kind of like homework, because this has been going through my mind a lot. I've been considering how we use colourful descriptive language, not that kind of colourful descriptive language, but we want to use words that convey the idea that there's a transition as well, right? So if we were pro level authors, we'd use a lot of springtime. So we should probably have our players arrive. We should probably, as time of the year goes, we should decide it's probably springtime, right? Because there's change in the air, right? Not autumn, because that's more negative, right? So it's the start of spring, and we're starting to get the first buds and stuff, right? But we want to use language that a fishing hovel in bloom, yeah. So we want to use language that suggests that things are changing, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And then we haven't started writing the Sunnybrid introduction, so I haven't got to use any of them yet. But that means I've got another week to think, or another 2 weeks to think of even more, we can I'm kind of expecting that we'll discuss this stuff while we're drawing our poster next week, which I'm really looking forward to. So yeah, have a think about how we can use language to convey that while this place smells, there's a smell of change in the air. Play him as Filch, yeah. God, just like a real dishevelled. Yeah, I'd love it. Like, I'm hoping that this campaign actually becomes a campaign at some point, because that's like immediately. That's my. I try and look at this stuff and think like what I would do if I was a player. Then that's somewhere I would go, because that'd be a very easy way. I'd like to play a character that was a guard and that had left because they believe that they're overtly like a loyalist, and I'd like to play a character as they arc through realizing that the change is for the better. That would be like a really interesting character to play. So like you could be like you're not a militant loyalist, right? You're not the sort of person who's going to like kick up a fuss, but you just like maybe your family are all loyalists and you were brought up loyalist, and you think like what's the Senate going to do for us that like the king's all powerful and stuff, and he's kept us right kind of thing. And like the more, because I imagine that the players are going to tend to lean towards being like separatist, so I would enjoy being the player in the party who's like maybe doesn't necessarily agree with everyone else's political alignment, but is willing to go along with it. And then like you start to realize that, you know, like after a few weeks of playing, and you realize the people of Sunnybrid, you know, have fuller plates on an evening kind of thing. So like it can't be that bad. And then you come to like a realization at the end where like you were the bad guy. That'd be awesome. You got to deal with the guilt of like, and then you start to think back to some of the things that you did as like a guard, like extorting food out of like the townspeople when they were at their lowest kind of thing, and you've got to deal with that like internal guilt. What an interesting character to play, right? That's kind of where I would be. And if one of our players came at us with an idea like that, I would have a I'd have a pleasant reaction, right? So we've had a productive week, I believe. I want to thank you all, as always, for joining us. It's been emotional, and in particular to today's MVP, Pontus. You know, we might have to make that a weekly thing. MVP. If we were to, I'm not going to be able to remember previous weeks, but if we went back to last week, we'd obviously have Robbie B as our MVP for the fastest moderation in the West. When we had that interloper. So as always, if you want access to the document, the world building document, it's here. And if you want a hang on, is that going to work? And if you want to catch up, if you spell YouTube correctly, all our stuff's now on YouTube. But I'm sure if you search Roostbliss on YouTube, you'll probably find the account. I'm talking to people who've already seen it, but you know, yeah, catch up. Let us know if you've got any topics that you want to talk about next week. Next week we're gonna get the iPad set up again, and we're gonna have a fun arts and crafts session, and we're gonna draw a propaganda poster for Sunnybrid. So have a think about what we might include on this poster. We could do more than one if we do them quickly. I've not got any ideas yet. I'm trying to be a blank canvas so that we can do whatever people think is the best idea at the time. But I know the kind of message that we want to get across with it. Have I got anything else to say? I think that's it, right? We're there. We've done the YouTube. I've plugged the YouTube. I've done all the streamer stuff. Thank you all, as always, for being a part of this wonderful journey. I look forward to continuing the journey next week. If you aren't already following the channel, then follow. It'll do us an immense help. If we can eventually ever get to 50 followers, then we can have our own fun emojis and stuff in chat. So that'd be great. Yeah, great session. Thank you all very much for joining. Thanks for bearing with the technical difficulties at the start of the show. And I will see you all again next week. Thank you all.